videotapes of prosecutors on record, available on here, that nobody has covered for 5 months, because this town protects Joe Biden. His family has been taking money from his public office for years. $1.5 billion from China, when our vice president is supposed to be impartially and independently negotiating for us, and the kid, he takes him on Air Force Two to China.
That was in 2013.
Yeah, and the kid, unfortunately, is a drug addict. China didn't give $1.5 billion
Crushing
to his kid,
Giuliani.
Biden's kid, a recovering drug addict, Kerry's stepson, and Whitey Bulger's nephew. Ladies and gentlemen,
Bulger's nephew.
go look at what the press has been covering up on you. Can you imagine?
This is a company called Rosemont Seneca. Let me just get back if I could
for a second. Whitey Bulger's nephew.
Let me just stop for a second.
1.5 billion coming from China when our vice president.
Mr.
That
Mayor,
doesn't shock you?
let me stop for a second because
how far have we deteriorated?
let me stop for a second because we are throwing around a lot of Ukrainian names that people don't know
Nobody
about.
would ever cover this.
Victor Shokin was a prosecutor back when Biden was the vice president. He was looking into Burisma Holdings, of which Hunter Biden was on the board of directors.
Correct.
There was some allegations that there was some monkey business going on with Burisma.
Monkey business.
Joe Biden went over to Ukraine in 2016 and said that I'm going to withhold more than $1 billion in loan guarantees unless you fire this prosecutor. Joe Biden talked about that in 2018. Let's roll that.
I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be
Look
leaving
at
here.
him.
And I think it was, what,
Look
6
at
hours?
this
I think it was
grappler.
leaving 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money.
But Shokin had been heavily criticized for corruption. And it was the United States and a number of other Western countries who said he needs to go. Was this tied to Hunter Biden, or was this the United States saying, you've got a bad actor there because he was accused of corruption in his office, and other countries in the West were saying he needs to go as well?
What does it matter if the son's under investigation? He didn't disclose that. It doesn't the thing strike you? I mean, it's so warped. Doesn't it strike you as strange that he would tell that story and not mention to you that his son's company was the major defendant in the investigation the guy was carrying on? I happen to know, and I've seen the records. Do you know why he was fired? Do you know how the kid was paid? $3 million goes from Ukraine to Cyprus. Ukraine to Latvia. Latvia to Cyprus. Cyprus to Rosemont Seneca. I've seen each one of the wires. When that prosecutor Shokin subpoenaed Cyprus, he got a response. I have the record. They gave him all the information but 2 people. Hunter Biden and John Kerry's stepson. John Kerry's speechwriter, who was the best friend of his stepson.
The prosecutor who followed...
When that happened, Joe Biden knew that they were zeroing in on Hunter. And he went over there, he got him fired. And the next day, people showed up. And they started working on getting the case for the kid dismissed, as well as the case for Soros. And that's what brings me into it.
Now, the prosecutor...
You gotta let me finish. You said I went there to get dirt on Joe Biden. Do you know what I found out about Joe Biden? Do you know what I told my colleague? They're gonna cover this up. Too bad Biden's involved in this. I got a nice straight case of Ukrainian collusion. The minute I say Biden, that Washington press corps is going to go nuts. They've been covering up for years. China.
For years.
Now you're straying into areas of opinion.
I'm straying into what is wrong with us today.
We need to point out that Yuri Lutsenko, who was the prosecutor who was appointed after Shokin was fired, resurrected, reanimated the case and found that Hunter Biden was in fact paid millions of dollars. But Lutsenko said that the board of Burisma was able to pay a board member whatever they wanted, and he didn't see anything wrong with that.
Distorted.
I'm just pointing out a fact.
If you did any work, you'd find out Lutsenko
if you did any work at all.
There's a newspaper article in which Biden approves Lutsenko when he's appointed. Doesn't that strike you as odd that the vice president would approve a particular prosecutor? Did you ever bother to look?
He's scared for his job.
One other point we need to make here.
Let me finish. Look at his eyes. He's scared.
This is really unfair. These are very important things that have been covered up for years to protect.
Look at that nervous smile, that nervous smirk.
That there are 3 other prosecutors.
Fox News is
all
going
you have
down.
to do is go online. 3 others.
Giuliani crushing.
This was done precisely to get rid of Biden, to cover up Hunter, and to cover up Soros. I'll give you their names.
Hunter,
One of them
Soros,
is Kuliak, Konstantin Kuliak. The other is Shokin himself, and the third one is a prosecutor by the name of Nasdir. They're present officials. Three of them were officials. One is still an official.
Look at Giuliani smart.
If you bother to look,
brains.
you can listen to them on tape telling you that. Now, they may all be lying, but Lutsenko may be lying also, but it's 3-1.
One more point we're going to make.
Lutsenko is Biden's chosen prosecutor.
Okay, you've made your point. One more point we need to make.
Find out there is a great deal of suspicion.
Joe Biden yesterday told our Peter Doocy yesterday that he never discussed overseas business with his son Hunter.
Believe that?
I don't know. Do you believe that?
I'm flying my son to China. How long is the flight to China?
It's a while.
15 hours, 16 hours, 17. I'm flying my son to China on Air Force 2. I'm going to negotiate with the Chinese to help America. My son is going there to negotiate to help the Biden family. When he comes back, and 8 days later, the kid gets $1 billion in his ridiculous private equity fund, run by a recovering drug addict, somebody connected to the vice president of the United States, and somebody connected to the biggest gangster in America. Wait a second. The son doesn't say to him, I got $1 billion? By the way, you see what Joe said? It's contradicted by the son. The son said, I talked to my father about it. How about this? There was an article on December 9 of 2015 in the New York Times raising holy hell about Biden's son being on the board of the most corrupt company in Ukraine and how strange it looked. I don't know if Joe reads the newspapers, but somebody must have read that to him. And finally, if Joe didn't know what his son was doing abroad, how many conflicts are there? This guy was flying blind. I don't know. Did he get money from Russia? Did he get money from Cuba? Was he doing business in Venezuela? You're telling me that the vice president of the United States was there for 8 years. His son is going around the world taking millions from some adversary of the United States. Don't say yeah.
No,
this is important.
I'm saying we've got to go.
This is about the only time I've gotten to point out a tremendously large scandal that affects the American people. And it's your job to do it, not just mine. I'm doing it to defend my client.
We are out of time.
Look at his eyes. We're out of time.
System with his
of course, out of time.
To check on conflicts.
There's out of time for truth
so we know
always.
Too. We know there's a big conflict.
There's no time
with
for truth
we
in
know
America.
There's a big conflict with China. Since
on
Joe
the mainstream news,
says,
even Fox News,
apparently
of course.
selling the swamp media on the fact that he didn't know. Well, Joe, how many more conflicts are there? Venezuela.
Oh,
Cuba.
Venezuela.
You mentioned that.
Russia.
We've got to leave it, Mr. Mayor. We are
$1.5 billion is enough for most people to get invested.
We are out of time for this morning, but clearly we're going to keep looking into this.
And this is going to get bigger and bigger, and everything I say, I can prove.
Rudy, thanks so much for being with us.
Take me on.
Proof.
Appreciate it. Coming up, we'll get a reaction to the president's Iran policy with the top Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Ben Cardin.
Hope you enjoyed that, guys. A moment of clarity on Fox News.